I'm today talking to you about Hettys Hospital. I'm not Gareth Nixon, that's just my day name, but we'll go with that for now. So Hettys Hospital, it's an app that's freely available on Android and iOS, and it's for kids, but I'll talk a bit more about it now. First of all, so I work for Global Initiative. We're an independent digital agency, and we worked with two paediatricians who came up with the idea, and we've worked with them throughout the project. So first of all, the problem that we're trying to solve with Hettys Hospital is quite simple. Essentially, it's children becoming really anxious about going into hospital. It's an incredibly intimidating environment. They don't know anything. It's nothing that they're familiar with. It's quite sterile, and there's a huge amount of unknown about it. Because the children are anxious, the parents are also anxious as well. So even for quite normal procedures that they had to go in, this became a really terrifying experience for families. And yeah, essentially just a really poor understanding about what would happen when they go into hospital. So motivations, what do we want to do? Help the children, first and foremost, try and make that experience a lot easier for them. Improve the image of the NHS, so rather than it being quite an intimidating place, something that they can feel familiar and not intimidated by. And not make a buck. Essentially this project, we work a lot with quite corporate clients, but for this one we knew there was never going to be any money involved with it for us. It was just going to become like a labour of love. So already, yeah, it was all about solving solutions to the problem for the patients rather than actually making any money. So the project, the brief we worked for was this: create a storybook app that reduces anxiety for kids going into hospital by educating them about the experience in a fun and engaging way. So why we wanted to do an app? Just because it's freely available once you've created it, so it's really easy to distribute, and it's incredibly engaging. So the process, just talk quickly about how we made it. So first of all, the team. So the three of us from Global Initiative that led the project, and Rebecca and Ria, who were the two paediatricians that came up with the project, and really led the project from the medical side of things. So we kicked off. A project like this starts with storyboarding. So once we knew what we wanted to do, that it was going to be an app, the first thing to do is actually storyboard the whole thing out and start planning how it's all going to come together. So this is the first phase, defining each of the different stories that would go into it. Then the really fun bit, which is developing the character. So this is the hero of the story, Hetty. And as you can see, she really did go through quite a big evolution from sketch into a final project. So this is all about what we're trying to achieve. So as you can see, the sterile environment of a hospital, this is nothing that a child is going to be familiar with. The colour, the machines and everything, it's very clinical, and it's very intimidating. So it's translating this into something that they are far more comfortable with, which is a fun sort of illustration app. So this is Hetty having her ultrasound. We've also got Charlie having an MRI scan. And Hetty, this is her on the ward as well. So this is actually an interactive room, so the kids can play around with all the different machines and try them out. We needed a bit of continuity throughout the project, so essentially you've got Hetty who goes in for her ultrasound. There's also other characters that go in for other different procedures, so it's a bit much to expect Hetty to have every single procedure in one visit to hospital. So we meet Charlie, who has an MRI scan, Freddie, who goes in for an X-ray, and Priya, who's got a chest infection as well. So we wanted a way to tie all that together, so we created Dino, which is based on my childhood toy, and Dino gets passed around all the different kids, so they get to explore the story. Dino's also operated on quite a lot. He gets scanned, he gets infected and everything, so he's been a great character of the story. So hopefully this will work if I play. Yes, this is a short video of one of the games, Find What Dino Ate Today. It's surprisingly addictive. So yeah, essentially it's just introducing the different procedures that the kids can do. So the whole storyline is broken up with different games just to keep them engaged while still trying to get across the important messages. So this is the target audience, essentially 4 to 9-year-olds that are going to go into hospital. A few things about 4 to 9-year-olds. There's no reading, so all of the app has to be narrated and very visual. You can't rely on them having to read anything. Limited understanding of time and events, so when we're actually planning the whole thing, how it's all going to come together, we just need to make it as clear as possible and nothing unexpected for them. and the vocabulary as well. So there is a lot of quite important medical terms that we do use, just because they do need to know them, but we do need to bear in mind that there's a very limited word count for kids of that age. Smaller hands as well, so this is a usability issue. So normally we design apps for sort of adults, and the way that they use an app is very different to someone with tiny hands, and actually being able to move around and play the game is quite different for them. And the shorter attention span as well. This is something we really need to focus on, because we did really want them to enjoy the app. So yeah, dotting the games throughout the app just meant that they retained their attention. Testing. So throughout the project we had a small army of testers, friends and family of people working on the project, and they were able to test the games, sort of our assumptions as we went along. Some of the more sort of specific things like usability, like if they can actually navigate through the app and whether that's what they'd do intuitively. But also bigger things like we wanted to make sure that the games weren't too addictive, because then it would obviously lose the importance of the actual message we were trying to get across. So throughout the whole project we had an army of young people testing it, which is really great. Also we did a full survey just to check that it is exactly being used as we wanted it to be. The results were brilliant, so 95% of people, of the 4 to 9-year-olds that we interviewed, and their parents as well, thought it would be useful. Most of them learned an awful lot, and most of them as well really liked Hetty. That was one of our concerns, is that having a lead that was a girl, people might, like the boys, might not be quite as engaged with it, but we didn't find that at all. She was a great lead and hero of the project. Here's a few sort of feedback notes that we got. So he learned to be calm in hospital and that it's safe, which is ideal. That's exactly the message that we wanted to get across. She's very interested in the ultrasound, so actually engaging with the procedures. She liked learning about the jelly, which is one of the more specific things. And she learned that going to hospital makes you better, which is great if they can come away with this sort of message. And yeah, there's nothing to be scared of. So the outcomes that we've had. The actual project, so a storybook app with 4 main characters, 6 supporting characters, 16 scenes and 12 games. So that's just the first phase. It's got an enormous amount in it. Around 500 estimated downloads despite limited marketing. That is one of the key learnings that we've had from the project, is that it's not just about raising funding for the project, you've also got to consider the marketing finances as well. So very limited marketing, but enormous spread with word of mouth, and that's what we've managed to achieve so far. 5-star reviews on iOS App Store and Google Play Store, so everyone that has played with it has really engaged with it well, and it's been really positive feedback. And so this is phase 1 that we've done. We're actually now looking at phase 2, because we've managed to raise further £60,000 funding from Great Ormond Street and the University College London hospitals. So we're creating more storylines, including diabetes and allergies, I think, and there's one more as well, cancer, which are really important topics that we want to address. So the project's growing and spreading, and it's really exciting. Here's just a few scenes from the project. So this is Hetty and Priya in the playroom. Charlie having his MRI scan, the interactive ward room, and that's it. So yeah, freely available, please download today.